Well, hello and welcome to this Tuesday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran, and let's take a look at what's making global headlines. Viewers, what you just saw on your screens is India's very own How's the Josh moment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the Adampur Airbase in Punjab, meeting with soldiers and celebrating their hard-fought victory right at ground zero, as you see on the visuals on your screen right now. Now, this comes just days after India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire, marking a significant moment of triumph and, in fact, resilience. Adampur was one of the key Air Force stations targeted by Pakistan in a failed attempt on the night of May 9 and 10, following India's bold Operation Sindoor. Op Sindoor stands a proud symbol of India's unwavering strength and the indomitable spirit of our armed forces. A gunfight broke out in Jammu and Kashmir's Shopian between security forces and 4 terrorists this morning. The encounter began in Kulgam and shifted to Shopian's Forsted area following intelligence inputs. Now, police have confirmed that 3 terrorists have indeed been killed in the Shopian encounter. This clash comes in the aftermath of India's Operation Sindoor, a counter-strike against terror infrastructure in Pakistan after the deadly and dastardly Pahalgam attack. PM Modi has warned that any future terror attack, in fact, will be now treated as an act of war, promising strong retaliatory action. Meanwhile, my colleague Nazir joins me from Ground Zero. Nazir, what's the latest you're picking up and what should we expect? Nazir, if you can hear me, 3 terrorists have been neutralized by armed forces. What's the latest you're picking up from the ground?
Well, 3 militants, according to police, have been killed in this encounter. Awami has confirmed this. They launched the operation based on a specific information in a jungle area of Shopian. They are believed to be the Lashkar militants, and they have been killed in a swift operation by the security forces, by the army in particular, Rashtriya Rifles. But this operation is no way linked, or this encounter, to the situation along the line of control, be it recent escalation or the ceasefire that followed over the last 3 days. It is also not linked to the Pahalgam massacre, because an ongoing operation is going on there to track down the attackers and killers of 26 innocent people there. So this is an operation which was launched by the army, and 3 militants have been killed in this encounter. Identity of the slain militants is yet to be ascertained. So operation is underway. We'll get more details once the security force makes a statement on this operation.
Thank you so much for getting us the latest, Nazir. And of course, we'll keep on following each and every development there with a hawk's eye. Now, moving on, 2 Indian students, Saurav Prabhakar and Manav Patel, have died in a car crash in America's Pennsylvania. The Cleveland State University students were killed when their vehicle struck a tree and a bridge on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The Indian consulate in New York has expressed condolences and is assisting the families currently. A 3rd passenger, meanwhile, was injured and remains hospitalized. New Delhi has formally notified the World Trade Organization, or the WTO, of plans to impose retaliatory tariffs on American goods, responding to Washington's continued duties on Indian steel and aluminium exports. Now, the proposed tariffs, worth $1.9 billion American dollars, target a wide range of U.S. products. India has argued that the U.S. measures violate global trade rules and hurt Indian exporters. The move could very well complicate ongoing US-India trade talks aimed at reaching a bilateral agreement. US President Donald Trump has arrived in Saudi Arabia to begin a major 4-day Middle East tour covering Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE, or the United Arab Emirates as it's called, notably skipping Israel. Now, the decision has sparked unease in Jerusalem, with officials questioning whether Israel remains a top priority for Washington or not. The visit comes amid US talks with Hamas and Iran that have excluded Benjamin Netanyahu and the State of Israel, furthering straining ties. The White House has said that the president is on a historic return to the Middle East, the first official state visit of his 2nd presidency Perry will concentrate on strengthening ties. Meanwhile, my colleague Vishal Vivek joins us for the latest. Vishal, what can we expect on the economic front, and more importantly, what can we expect on the geopolitical front?
So to start off, Arjun, the US administration is looking for a $1 trillion investment. That's a huge amount. That's almost as big as the country's, Saudi Arabia's yearly GDP. So it's highly unlikely that US will get that kind of investment. But on the other hand, the Saudi Arabian administration had promised that there will be at least 600 billion worth of investment into the US. And as far as the geopolitics is concerned, there will be several discussions. The first one could be on the Gaza ceasefire deal. The other one could be on the all-important US-Saudi civil nuclear deal. That's been under consideration for a long time now. And there's also some reports suggesting that there could be a big advanced chips deal between both the countries. So all of this will be looked at when all the important meetings happen between both the administrations.
Thank you so much for getting us the latest there, Vishal. Moving on, the UK government has now, in fact, announced a major immigration overhaul restricting skilled workers' visas to graduate-level jobs and also barring foreign recruitment in the care sector. The reforms also tighten study, work and family immigration routes. What does this mean for Indian students, professionals and families betting on the UK dream? Well, my colleague Parmeshwar Bava unpacks all the relevant details you need to know around this story.
As the world grapples with tightening immigration belts, the United Kingdom has now buttoned up its own, signaling a decisive shift from global talent scouting to grow your own economics. This move could directly impact thousands of Indian students and professionals, as the UK has declared it's shutting the door on what it calls a failed free market experiment. Here's what's on the table. Well, starting this week, only graduate-level jobs will be eligible for skilled worker visas. That's right, roles once accessible to thousands of overseas workers could now be firmly out of reach unless they meet this newly elevated bar. Basically, in simple terms, if you're a care worker, a hospitality staffer, or a low-skilled recruit hoping to work in the UK, your visa chances just got a lot slimmer. Britain's Interior Minister didn't mince her words, calling the previous Tory-era system a free market experiment gone wrong. She says it's time to restore, quote, control and order. Translation, less foreign labour, more British upskilling. But behind this policy reset lies a deeper political push. Just days after Nigel Farage's Reform UK party, best known for its hardline immigration stance, scored gains in local elections, the Labour government is now feeling the heat and fast. UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer is under pressure to tame the numbers that actually speak volumes. Net migration to the UK hit a record 9,06,000 in the year to June 2023. That's actually up from 7,28,000 the previous year. And while the new plan may sound like a crackdown, it's also a concession to populist sentiment repackaged as reform. But what does this mean for Britain's job market? Well, employers aren't exactly celebrating. Shortages in key sectors from carpentry to graphic design to pharmaceuticals are already biting. Until now, these roles actually qualified for the immigration salary list, allowing foreign hires at a discounted wage floor just 80% of the market rate. But now, British businesses are warning that this pipeline could dry up.
Now, shifting focus to Southeast Asia, where Bangladesh's election commission has in fact suspended the registration of ousted former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's Awami League, barring the party from contesting future elections. Yes, that's correct. Now, the decision follows a government ban on all party activities, citing security threats and an ongoing war crimes probe. Now, Hasina, who fled into exile in August last year after deadly protests, faces mounting political unrest. The interim government, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, has pledged reforms but may very well delay the promised national elections until 2026. US Israeli soldier Eden Alexander has been reunited with his family after spending 19 months, or more than 500 days in fact, in Hamas captivity. The 21-year-old was captured during the October 2023 Gaza border attack His release, facilitated by the Red Cross, in fact, comes after Israeli military paused operations briefly. President Donald Trump and Israeli leaders credited military and political pressure for securing his freedom. In fact, Alexander's family urged continued efforts to free remaining hostages as well. Canada's newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney will swear in his cabinet on Tuesday in Ottawa. The ceremony will be officiated by Governor-General Mary Simon, the King's representative in the country. Now, Carney, a former Bank of England governor, in fact took office following April's elections, with his government expected to focus on climate policy and economic reforms. Meanwhile, my colleague Maha Siddiqui explains the key details. Take a look.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet is going to be sworn in on Tuesday morning. It is expected to be a small cabinet comprising 23 senior ministers and 10 junior ministers who will be categorized as secretaries of state. While some portfolios like international trade and finance ministry are likely to be untouched and will go back to Dominique LeBlanc and Francois-Philippe Champagne, there are surprises that are expected. For instance, it is likely that Melanie Joly may be shuffled out of her foreign ministry. Indian origin leader Anita Anand might get the Justice Department, that is the Justice Ministry, and the biggest surprise may come in the form of Chrystia Freeland, the former finance minister, not finding a place in the cabinet at all. Chrystia Freeland was a long-time confidant of Justin Trudeau, but their relationship soured towards the end of Trudeau's tenure. Chrystia Freeland had also contested and fought for the position of the leader of the Liberal Party. However, Mark Carney won that contest by a huge margin, getting almost 86% of the votes of his party. Now, as far as the swearing in is concerned, Mark Carney is not expected to take oath again because he took oath just 2 months ago as the Prime Minister of Canada, unless he adds another portfolio to his kitty. The other ministers who stay in their position are not expected to take oath again unless they choose to do so. Meanwhile, the Liberal Party is now just 2 seats short of a majority in Parliament. The latest seat that they were able to get was the riding of Terrebonne that flipped in their favor by 1 vote. There are 3 other ridings where there is still a recount that is on, and that result is not likely to come before the cabinet swearing in.
Shifting our focus eastwards, in fact, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he would like to see US President Donald Trump present at the upcoming Ukraine-Russia talks planned in Turkey. Now, Trump has said that he is optimistic about Thursday's expected talks between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky in Istanbul on finding an endgame, in fact, to Russia's war on Ukraine. Now, Trump, who is expected to be in Qatar and the UAE on Thursday, suggested that he could make a detour to Turkey if he thinks his presence might be helpful. Now, meanwhile, listen to what Volodymyr Zelensky had to say about this.
Щойно говорив з президентом Туреччини Ердоганом. Предметна розмова. Я вдячний президенту за підтримку. Я підтвердив йому готовність до прямих і предметних перемовин з Путіним. Україна завжди підтримує дипломатію. Я готовий бути в Туреччині. Російські обстріли і штурми продовжуються. Москва увесь день мовчала щодо пропозиції прямої зустрічі. Дуже дивне мовчання. Все одно треба буде Росії закінчувати війну. І краще зробити це раніше. Немає сенсу продовжувати вбивство.
US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order directing drug makers to cut medicine prices to match those in other developed nations. Now, the sweeping move sets aggressive targets for the pharmaceutical industry, with further action promised if companies fail to comply within 30 days. While investors and analysts question how the plan will be implemented, drug stocks recovered, in fact, after initial declines. The order reflects Trump's push to tackle inflation and lower healthcare costs for the average American. Saying with Trump, the US president has brushed aside ethical concerns over his decision to, in fact, accept a $400 million airplane from Qatar's royal family. It's on your screens right now. Critics call it a blatant conflict of interest, but Trump has said that it would be stupid, in his words, not to reject the gift, which he says will eventually be donated to his presidential library. Presidential Library for Perspective is a repository housing research materials from his administration. President Trump has said that he has no plans to use it for personal reasons after leaving office. The $400 million luxury plane, which would be outfitted to serve as the new Air Force One, in fact, would be one of the most valuable gifts ever received by the US government. And supporters of US President Donald Trump spent nearly $148 million on a meme cryptocurrency for a chance to dine with him at his private golf club near Washington, D.C. The top 220 holders of the dollar Trump coin have been invited to a gala dinner nonetheless, with additional perks for the top 25 investors. Now, critics argue the scheme raises concerns over foreign influence and cryptocurrency regulation as lawmakers propose tighter rules on digital assets in the US. A group of 59 white South Africans has arrived in the US after being granted refugee status under a special program, in fact backed by President Donald Trump himself. Now, Trump claims the Afrikaner minority faces racial discrimination and land seizures, in fact, in South Africa. The move has sparked controversy, with critics calling it a racially motivated policy twist. Meanwhile, South Africa's government denies claims of persecutions, calling them untrue. China has pledged nearly $10 billion in yuan-denominated credit lines to Latin American countries, this to support development and promote its currencies, a global news. In fact, President Xi Jinping has announced that the move at the China CELAC summit in Beijing, reaffirming China's growing economic ties with the region. Now, trade between Beijing and Latin America topped $500 billion just last year in 2024, up from $12 billion in 2000. She also announced visa-free travel for 5 countries, though details remain undisclosed. Now it's time we slip into a short break. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching The World Report. Now some news from the world of business. In fact, global stock markets rallied after the US and China agreed to a 90-day pause on their escalating tariff war. Both sides will slash steep import duties, offering temporary relief to businesses and supply chains as well. However, fundamental issues like the US trade deficit and fentanyl concerns remain unresolved as we speak. Meanwhile, analysts have warned that uncertainty persists despite US-China tariff truce, which followed high-level talks in Geneva, the first meeting, in fact, since Trump returned to office. According to a report by the information outfit, Google is working on the AI agent designed to assist software developers through every stage of coding. But that's true, the tool could be showcased very well at the Google's annual I/O Developer Conference next week. The tech giant is also expected to demonstrate its Gemini AI chatbots in voice mode integrated, in fact, with Android XR devices. Now, with growing competition in artificial intelligence, investors are pressuring Google to deliver returns on its massive investments. Meanwhile, the US auto safety regulators are pressing Tesla for details on its planned robotaxi service in Texas's Austin, set to launch as early as June this year. The country's National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is assessing how Tesla's full self-driving technology handles poor visibility after 4 reported crashes, including a fatality as well. Investigators want clarity on deployment plans, safety systems, and how many vehicles will Tesla be using. Samsung has unveiled its slimmest smartphone. Yes, that's true. The Galaxy S25 Edge, viewers on your screens right now, aiming to outpace Apple ahead of its expected thinner iPhone launch. Targeting younger users, the S25 Edge combines a sleek 5.8mm design with advanced artificial intelligence features. Now, the device, in fact, goes on to sale in the US on the 30th of May, or rather from the 30th of May, with a starting price of $1,099, which is roughly equal to INR 93,000. Mercedes will begin producing its popular GLC SUV at its Alabama plant to meet North American demand, shifting some output from its German factories. Now, the move comes amid US tariffs on imported vehicles and reflects the automaker's strategy to deepen its US manufacturing footprint. Production is expected or slated rather to begin in 2027. And the world of sports, Indian Premier League will resume on the 17th of May after a week-long suspension due to tensions between India and Pakistan. A ceasefire between the two nuclear-armed neighbours has paved the way for the tournament's return, with 17 matches still scheduled across 6 cities. Meanwhile, the IPL Governing Council has said that security agencies and key stakeholders have indeed approved the decision. The final will be played on the 3rd of June, with playoff venues to be announced later. The world of entertainment, hip-hop mogul, not so more, Sean Diddy Combs faces serious charges as a sex trafficking trial is underway in New York. A male stripper testified that Combs assaulted his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in a hotel incident and also coerced other women into abusive relationships. Prosecutors detailed violent abuse while his lawyers admitted to domestic violence but denied sex trafficking claims. Now, Sean Diddy Combs has pledged non-guilty to racketeering and sex trafficking charges. Across the border, Canadian rapper Tory Lanez has been hospitalized after being stabbed 14 times by another inmate at a California prison. Now, Lanez, who's serving a 10-year sentence for shooting Megan Thee Stallion in 2020, suffered collapsed lungs and multiple wounds, but is now stable and breathing on his own. The attack happened at the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi. Authorities are investigating the incident, but no motive has been confirmed just as yet. And Tom Cruise will be honoured with the British Film Institute Fellowship in London on Monday. The Hollywood megastar was in the UK gearing up to premiere his latest Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. The BFI Fellowship Award recognizes an extraordinary acting and producing career, huge contribution to the UK film industry and to the world, and of course, long-standing support for the cinematic experience. Listening. And meanwhile, Cruise is also expected to head to the Cannes Film Festival on Wednesday to premiere his new and possibly last Mission Impossible film. Here's more.
It's kind of amazing. Not kind of, it is amazing. You know, I remember thinking when I was a kid to make movies and travel the world. And I remember stepping off the plane in 1983 and being driven to Pinewood Studios. And all these years later, in the films that I've made here and traveled the world, it means a tremendous amount. Tremendous craftsman, love of cinema, the long history of